All right, my name is Patrice Valentine. I am the owner of Profusion Web Solutions. Again, we're doing our weekly 30-minute digital marketing breakdown, and today we're talking about website maintenance. Again, potentially maybe not the sexiest of topics that we have, but it is something that's going to help you identify problems and look at ways you can prevent what we are calling silent lead loss. When we hear people tell us, oh, marketing's not working or I'm not getting leads, before we start talking strategy and before we start, revamping everything, what we want to look at is can we trace any of these issues back to what we would call the silent issues, something like forms not working on the website, the speed of the website if the site is loading really slow, if tracking is just not something that's available, broken links, outdated plugins, things like that. So we're first going to take a look at what to check, then we'll look at how to check it fast and taking a look at what matters most. Again, we're talking strictly about website maintenance, not all marketing in general at this point, simply looking at websites and the maintenance of a website. Websites rarely just explode. So rarely are we dealing with someone who's calling and saying, my website just went completely offline or, it's throwing all kinds of errors. Rarely does that happen. If it does, we usually can trace it back to a domain problem. Either the domain is not registered properly, it expired, maybe there's a security issue. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But rarely does a website just explode and it's no longer working. Usually it happens kind of slowly, where a form stops sending an email, a mobile page gets really slow because, you've had multiple people working on the website and maybe they don't have great best practices or standard operating procedures that teach them how to, properly update a website. Tracking can stop if Google Analytics has changed. A couple years ago, Google Analytics changed from a universal code to the code that they're using now, and that broke a lot of people's tracking because they didn't go through the upgrade process properly. So it's not usually a massive explosion of your website that makes you realize that, oh no, my website's not working anymore. It's usually a slower, kind of quieter leak. Nothing is screaming at you. You're just seeing maybe you're not getting as many calls as you used to get. Maybe you're not getting as many form fills that you used to get. Your website might feel slow. You might be seeing some errors, maybe on some pages like a SSL certificate not loading properly or not being installed properly. So the website starts to feel, somewhat untrustworthy and it's not delivering you the leads that you need. The leads are quietly disappearing. That's typically what we see happen. It's not usually a massive, all of a sudden something has happened, emergency. It's usually a silent, slow, over the course of time, things just kind of are breaking down. If you've ever heard someone say to you something like, I filled out your website form and I never heard back, or I sent you an email and I never heard back, that's what we mean when we're talking about silent lead loss. It could also be that your traffic to your website is steady, but you're not seeing the same number of inquiries as you used to. Maybe you used to have 10 people a month fill out your contact form, and now you're seeing far fewer than that. That's what we're going to mean when we're saying the silent lead loss. It also can be if you're running ads. And a lot of this has changed. We want to caveat all of this with the fact that AI search is kind of changing a lot of these things to where, even your traffic could be down and your conversions could be down because your content is being shown in the AI overview. Your ads might not be as effective as they used to be because it could be a conversion issue, it could be a tracking type issue, or it also could be that people are searching for things differently. So again, before we go and we modify a strategy, before we implement a new ad campaign, before we, refresh the creative on a campaign, what we first want to look at is the technical side of things to make sure that there is not a conversion path or a tracking issue that we can fix, relatively easily rather than having to go revamp all of the ads or all of your, website copy or your calls to action, things like that. So taking a look at what silent lead loss actually looks like, it is a slow and steady kind of loss, not all that all at once loss that we talked about. Specifically today, we're going to look at 5 different types of what we would call failures, the things that are breaking down on your website. The first is going to be form failures. The second, if phone calls are hard to make to your company from your website. The third is going to be a slow to load website or pages specifically. Fourth is tracking. If your website tracking breaks, you're not getting Google Analytics, you're not seeing Google Search Console, things like that. And then the fifth is website updates and or security issues to your website. So those are the big five. We're going to go one by one to check, take a look at all of those, and then take a look at the simple fixes you can make. So the first one, I know we've talked about this a little bit, but the most websites have a form of some kind, request an estimate form, a contact us form. We see a lot of newsletter submission forms, things like that, that allow a user to provide you with information. They're going to put input form or content onto your website. They hit submit, and then that form data is supposed to go somewhere, to your email box, to your CRM, to just being stored in the back end of the website. This is where we're seeing the majority of websites breaking down, is that this data from the form to the user or to the CRM is not being delivered. There's any number of reasons for that. It could be the form is not set up correctly. It could be going to an old employee so that the function might actually be working properly. It's just not going to the right person. It could be going to a spam folder. It could require some level of email authentication. So we might need to, put in some authentication code in order to connect the sending email server to the website server and make sure that those are connecting and talking to each other. So it could be an actual technical issue that is causing these form notifications to be delivered, or it could be that the form is too long and too complicated. It could be something that simply is making it to where there's not an incentive for the users to actually complete the form, or they're attempting to complete it, but the submit button doesn't work right. The CAPTCHA code is too hard or is too not functional for folks to actually complete the form. So the very first thing we would suggest that you do is go and submit a test from your phone on your website. So go use your phone, complete your contact us form, go through every single form on your website. We have quite a few. There's an estimate request form, a contact form, like I said, that newsletter form. There's downloads for different PDFs, and we have to every once in a while just go through and double check all of those to make sure that the data is still flowing into the right place. So go through and test that, make sure it reaches the right form or make sure it reaches the right person, check your junk folder, and then make sure that once someone does submit it, so when you're pretending to be the user there, that you are getting the confirmation and that you're receiving the proper, if you're downloading a checklist, for example, that you're receiving that documentation so that the user then gets some element of, we've received your information and here is the thing we promised you. If that's, that could be something as simple as, thanks for completing our contact us form. We respond within 24 hours. So setting that expectation, the confirmation and the expectation. So the silent failure number one that can be fixed immediately is going and testing your forms and making sure that they are going to the right place. Second one is phone calls, especially from a mobile device. Again, so if you've just tested your form on your phone, go to your website and click on your phone number. If you can't click on it, that's a problem. The phone number needs to be near the top of your website and it needs to be a tap to call. So from your phone, you need to be able to just tap right on the phone number, and then it'll give you the little pop-up that actually allows you to complete that phone call directly on your mobile device. So tap to call on mobile, incredibly important. Don't make a person have to remember your phone number and then retype it in. That's going to lead to, again, that silent loss that we're talking about. We also want to make sure that your phone call is the same on your Google Business profile as it is on your website. Again, our goal with a website is to completely remove any confusion about your business. We want to increase clarity, remove confusion. So if they're seeing one phone number on Google Business profile and a different phone number on your website, that can create confusion and conflict. We want to remove that. So make sure that your click to call on Google Business profile is the same phone number as what they're seeing on your website. And then just some common kind of business best practices, really not to do with the website, but those last two are, make sure your voicemail greeting sounds legitimate. Make sure it's easy to hear, clear the name of the company that they're calling. If you are out for special hours, make sure that the hours are updated on your voicemail, rather than just having that. If you're using your cell phone, we've all heard it where it just repeats back the phone number. That gives me a low level of confidence that I've called the right number. We want to give people a high level of confidence that we've called the right phone number and that there is a plan in place for you to be having that phone call returned. So again, make sure your voicemail sounds legit, that it again includes the name of the company, potentially hours of operations if things are deviating from what is on your website. And then make sure you have that missed phone call process so that people aren't going days or weeks without getting a return phone call. You want to return those in a very timely manner. Again, business best practice, not necessarily for the website, but just wanted to put that in there as well, that if you have your phone number on your website, make sure you do have a missed call process. Silent failure number 3 is a slow loading website. I don't think I really need to spend a whole bunch of time on this slide. A slow site will make people leave. There's all kinds of science and tests and research done on this, but we don't even need that because as users, I think we've all had the experience where we've clicked through to a website, we wait for it to load, we wait for it to load, we wait for it to load, and then at some point we just click back. We don't have confidence that it's going to load if it hasn't loaded quickly. So we're not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this, but test your website on mobile. So go to your website from your phone. Again, make sure it loads quickly. I have included that link at the bottom that says test your site speed at pagespeed.web.dev. That is a Google provided tool that allows you to test how fast your website loads on mobile and on desktop. I typically I'm going to say that mobile speed matters more than desktop because that's where a lot of your visitors are going to come from, and we are typically less patient on our handheld devices than we are at a desktop device. So I would say mobile speed, check that first, and then if you are noticing that you are getting a low score, so 50 or below, you're going to want to make sure that you are optimizing the pages so that they load properly. The biggest culprits that we see are images that are far too large. So when I take a picture on my cell phone, it's 3 MB at a minimum. It's a huge photo. If I take that picture and I drop that directly into my website without modifying the size, without reducing the size, that image is going to be very large and slow to load on a mobile device. If I'm relying on a cellular connection, that will take too long to actually load on my website. So make sure that you are resizing photos properly, that you don't have extra scripts running or outdated plugins or plugins that you no longer need that are loading on your website. That leads to some of that bloat that might be on your website, things that you've tried out that maybe they didn't work out on your website, but you've kept them on there. But if you don't need them, simply get rid of them, and that will help make sure that your website loads fast. But go to that test your speed, go to the page speed with the Google Insights there, and that will at least give you a baseline for how your website is currently loading, how fast it's loading, and give you an idea of things that you can do to speed up that load. Number 4 is tracking gaps. This is almost true for everything. I think we've said it about anything that we've done is if you can't track it, you can't improve it. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. We don't know what the baseline is if we can't measure it. So if we're looking at tracking on our website, tracking, this is where things break all the time because most of the time we're relying on a third-party plugin, usually Google Analytics or a third-party tracking tool, and they can change things. It can be access that has changed, whether we've given a website permission to use our account to track website users, visitors, all of those statistics. And then that connection can get broken. And there's not necessarily an email that's going to be sent to you saying, hey, this connection has been broken. It can just break and be broken in the background. And you don't know it until you go and actually check to make sure that your analytics are actually collecting the website data. So you want to make sure that your Google Analytics are installed and collecting data from the website. We've already talked about this from the silent lead killer number 1, which was the form submissions, but make sure that your form submissions are being tracked. That can be tracked because it's being delivered into an inbox or tracked because it's going into a CRM or a newsletter system, however you're tracking that. Keep your call tracking method. Again, if you use a voice over IP, that's what we do. We have a breakdown of all the phone calls that have come in. So from my voice over IP app on my phone, I can see phone calls that came in, where it was answered, how long the phone call was, any missed phone calls. I can see all of that from my app. So make sure that there is a process that you have that you're taking care of so that if there are calls that are missed or if there are calls that are coming in from the website, that there is a way and a process for you to deal with those as well. If you are running a campaign, an ads campaign, or even if you're just putting links out on social media and you want to track how many people are coming to your website from that specific link that you've shared. There are campaign links called UTMs. UTM is kind of a throwback language. It stands for Urchin Tracking Module. And before there was Google Analytics, there was a tracking tool called Urchin, and Google actually purchased it, which is why it was kind of the basis for Google Analytics. But Urchin Tracking, that's what the UTM stands for. It's just a little snippet of code that you add to the end of a URL that provides a unique experience for that URL. It provides a unique tracking for that URL. So it helps you identify the source, because in that you can put in, let's say if I'm creating a Facebook ad, I can put in, Q2 Facebook ad about hosting or whatever. I can put in very specific information into that UTM that tells me exactly where someone came to my website from if they used that URL. So use those campaign links via UTMs. And again, it just allows us to track where things are coming from. So if we're able to track, we can see, okay, did this ad stop performing because the tracking just isn't working? Or did this ad stop performing because, maybe there's some creative fatigue? Maybe it's no longer relevant because the seasons have changed or the products have changed. So whatever it is, we want to make sure that we're tracking it and that the tracking is still working so that we can measure the ad's effectiveness or the campaign's effectiveness. So if you can't track it, you can't improve it. So we want to make sure that we're tracking as much as we possibly can when it comes to things driving traffic to your actual website. Silent failure number 5 is probably the most technical one that we'll talk about. We have had some technical bits like UTMs get a little bit into the technical side of things, but your website, if it's built on something like WordPress, even to some effect, BigCommerce or Shopify or any of the other content management systems, there is an update process that typically goes along with that. Some of the uh, WordPress builder, or sorry, website builders like Wix kind of handle some of the updates for you. So you're not going to have to worry about this necessarily. There are plugins and there are add-ons to those that will require some updates. But for the most part, if you are dealing with a website like WordPress, which is, it powers more than 70% of the internet right now, there are version updates of WordPress that come out weekly sometimes, daily sometimes, depending on vulnerabilities found. And the different plugins that run the different elements of your website, be it e-commerce, a form builder, an image slider function, a weather widget, whatever it is that you're adding to your website, those are called plugins, and those plugins need to be updated and maintained on a regular basis. So as new updates come out, you want to make sure that you are backing up your website and then installing the updates. If you have a fully managed host like us, we handle that for you. If you are not hosting with a fully managed host, if you are in charge of your own server or your own website on a server, you want to make sure that you are going in and regularly updating the core functionality of your website along with the plugins. When you do these updates, it is incredibly important that you do these. And there's a caveat there, because when you do these updates, sometimes things can break. WordPress does not guarantee that its core updates are going to work with every single one of the plugins that you have on your website. So you want to make sure that you run the update and then test everything on your website to make sure that, again, those forms are still submitting, tracking is still happening, Google Analytics are still working. So this is the part of managing a website that gets to be a little daunting, because updates happen frequently and you have to continue to make sure that your website works. Again, having a beautiful website is great, but if it's not sending you leads, if you're not getting any data from it, it's kind of pointless. So you do want to make sure that you are updating. This is not an optional thing. You can't just ignore the updates. You want to make sure that you're updating it so that you continue to keep your website safe from that consistent maintenance. And this goes with checking for broken links and scanning for website issues as well. You want to do this on a regular basis. Again, if you have a fully managed host, like what Profusion has to offer, this is something that you get to outsource to us, and we take care of that for you. So if I boil this down into a 10-minute monthly routine that maybe you say, okay, you know what, the first Friday of every month, I'm going to set aside 10 minutes and I'm going to go through and do this little checklist. Here are the items on your checklist. You're going to submit your forms. Again, I test all of the forms, so make sure that they are going to the right place, make sure that you receive the information, and then make sure as a user that the user gets kicked back the information that was promised to them from that form. Every month, tap to call. So go to your Google Business Profile, tap it, make sure that that goes to the right place. Go to your website from your phone, tap the phone number, make sure that it is uh, based on, it's able to make a phone call just based on tap alone, and then I don't have to copy down that phone number. Go do that mobile check, speed check. So go to the Google page that I linked to earlier and spot check your mobile load speed just once a month. Just check it out and make sure that it's still continuing to load fast. What you'll see is if there is a problem that maybe you didn't identify, if there is extra bloat on your website that you can't see visually, oftentimes the mobile load speed check will let you know that this is a problem. Confirm that your Google Analytics 4, we say GA4, it's the only analytics. If you've just added analytics to your site, this is the only one that you're using. So confirm your Google Analytics tracking is live and continuing to track. So make sure that if you've gone back and you've looked and you see, okay, there's a baseline of traffic and then all of a sudden it just drops off. It could be a traffic issue, yes, but it also could be an analytics or reporting issue. So make sure that that is connected and actually tracking. And then go do the updates on your website. Make sure you've got the backups. Make sure the broken links aren't there. And I didn't include all of those little tasks. What I included was maybe opt for fully managed hosting because I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily have the time to go through and do all of that every single month or every single week when that comes out. So look for a fully managed host that will take care of all of that for you and be responsible for your updates, for keeping your website clean, for making sure there's no malware and handling all of that on your behalf. So again, once a month, go through and spend these 10 minutes to make sure that your website is functioning the way you expect it to. If you notice issues, here is my priority list of what to fix first. I'm going to start with the conversion path. I think the conversion path is probably the most important thing to fix. You want to make sure that if someone is filling out your forms, that you're able to receive that data because there's really nothing worse than having a hot lead that someone's like, okay, I'm ready to do this, and they fill out the form, and for you to just straight up ghost them, and not intentionally, not out of malintent, but simply because you didn't get the information. So I would fix first the forms and making sure that you are getting that information set to your inbox, and then the tap to call. So the two conversion and the call to action, I have an add on there too. We didn't necessarily talk about that today, but those three things is making sure that any conversion element on your website is working flawlessly. If it's not, those are the things to fix first. Fix that initial conversion path. Then go through and fix mobile speed. So if that seems to be an issue, if your mobile site is not loading quickly, look at image size reduction. Are there files that can be removed? Do you have a slow loading video? Do you have bloat or information on your website that just doesn't need to be there that can be removed to increase the mobile speed? Again, on that mobile speed tool, that the Google tool, it will give you ideas to increase your load time. So look through the suggestions that they give you and see if there are some that you are able to do. The next one would be tracking verification, just to make sure that all the data that should be going to your tracking tools are actually going where they should go. So check that. And then if you don't have a fully managed host, go through and make sure that you have your updates, your security on your website set, and your backups first. But again, if you're hemorrhaging leads, that's the first thing I would fix. Make sure that you have that buttoned up so that you are able to continue to grow and operate your business based on the leads coming through to your website. Pretty straightforward stuff. Just some very basic things that you want to just double check to make sure that you are not losing leads on your website. Next week, we are running our office hours kind of open Q&A type session. That's any questions that have come through that maybe you have about digital marketing. I know we have one about email marketing that came through last night that we'll talk about next week, and how to implement some segmentation. So we're going to talk about that. But anything that you might have questions on, whether it's AI, whether it's content, whether it's graphics, we are open to chatting about that next week. You can submit your questions directly to me by sending an email to Patrice at profusionwebsolutions.com, or in the webinar registration page, there is a section to be able to drop in your questions as well. So any questions are on the table, and we will get those answered next week during our office hours. Thank you so much for being here, and we will talk to you next week. Bye.